Hello, YouTube. Alpha White Wolf bringing you something a little interesting that I've been working on. So, as some of you may or may not know, I have recently gotten a 3D printer, and it's actually currently working right now. So, this is the Anycubic Photon S. I managed to get it a couple weeks ago, and I've been kind of experimenting with it, figuring out how to get it to work, figuring out how to get some print qualities looking good, and I I feel that some of these results are some of them are pretty good, I will admit, but some of them are just too funny to not share. So let me go ahead and share the very first thing that managed to come off of my 3D printer. So let me go ahead and flip this around. Like, what is this? I described it on my Instagram best. This looks like a Bethesda glitch, doesn't it? It looks like a freaking Bethesda glitch. It looks like something that would be in Skyrim. If you had just modded Skyrim to just be super freaking buggy. I wasn't a super big fan of it. I do keep it around mostly for the sake of reminding myself to constantly learn from what I'm doing with the 3D printer, but my god, look at this thing. This thing is hilariously bad. It is honestly hilariously bad, but it is nothing compared to attempts 3 and 4, and I can show them at the same time. So attempts 3 and 4 basically came about because, well, I apparently hadn't zeroed it correctly, and as a result, what should have been a cleaner version of this ended up being these. Yeah, basically, instead of sticking to the build plate at all, they stuck to the bottom of the resin tub and ended up forming into these flat, frankly silly looking little things. Honestly, once again, I only keep these around because, again, it's very space efficient, but it's also just hilarious to look at. But eventually, I did manage to, in fact, get a nice, successful 3D print. And inside there you can see in that top bar, if I can get a better angle, Anycubic. And then under the bottom bar, Photon. And this is actually, like, really cool. This was really impressive when I managed to scrape it off. Its base took a little bit of damage because it was really determined not to come off, but I was really impressed with this. It wasn't as cleaned as I would have liked, mostly because I was using isopropyl alcohol and it just did not clean it as well as I would have liked. However, once I had that kind of stuff figured out, it was off to the races with the big reason why I purchased the 3D printer at all. And let me tell you, it was frustrating because I purchased it and literally within a couple days it went on sale for about like $50 off, and it was frustrating as heck. So let's go ahead and take a look at, once again, an example of having to learn from the nonsense that you do. So I was trying to 3D print some Space Marines, and this was the first attempt. Yeah. So, not the greatest result. A lot of stuff was still stuck to the resin tub bottom, but this, once again, I'm planning on getting rid of this because it's not as fun as the other ones, but it is still interesting to look at. I will say, though, that the helmet, it came out really weird, kind of elongated and goofy, but I will say that you can kind of still see some small details. You can kind of see like the islands, the tube on the side of the Vox bit in front, and some grooves for the actual Vox caster in the front of the helmet itself. But that was all well and good. That was an interesting learning experience. But I eventually figured out that I needed to start doing things a little bit differently if I wanted to get better results. So that was take 1. Take 2, if I can get these pieces all oriented. It's a bunch of these guys. So with this one, I was able to figure out, okay, let's go ahead and tilt things in order to make it so that they can be built up properly. Once again, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. You can still see a lot of gunk left all over it because once again, I was still using isopropyl alcohol and it just wasn't strong enough to really get rid of some of that nonsense. Now, this was attempt number 2. I will say that the shoulder guards, the pauldrons, came out pretty well. A bit of excess material still in the front there, but overall I could still use these. But what about take 2? Now take 2 I ended up having a bit more success with. I was still modifying things, and at that point I had changed the substance that I used to clean them with. I had taken to using a substance known as Mean Green. It's an all-purpose cleaner, and the results were much better. So, for instance, you can really see that there's not as much gunk all over the side of this bolt rifle. It's much cleaner, much more well made. It's overall pretty well made for the 3D printer. There were still some extra stuff that was not great. This came out pretty well. I was still experimenting with figuring out which way to orient stuff to get the most detailed looks on the various pieces. Because as we all know, Warhammer stuff is very detailed. The legs came out really well, really nicely though. I think I can definitely work with these. They even managed to get the traction, the treads on the soles of the boots. That was incredible to me. I was really happy with that. I was actually using it as an experiment to see whether or not the way that the bolt rifle was angled could get a better view. This one was okay, but it still has that gunk on the front face that I just was not a fan of. This was the power pack. And once again, I was trying to experiment to see if I couldn't get it as clean as possible. But this was take 3. Take 4 has so far been my most successful. Let me get these out of the way and bring in take 4. Okay. So first off, once again, there was a bit of build plate malfunction where stuff wasn't sticking to it. There was supposed to be some stuff right around this area here, but it still came out really nicely. There was a lot of really good detail. The chest piece for this Space Marine came out nicely detailed. I just love that. The helmet is a little bit elongated in a bizarre looking way, and I was experimenting with angling the bolt rifle to get a good print. That didn't work out well. You can kind of see that little extension of resin where stuff broke away. The power pack, I think, came out really nicely. I mean, just take a look at that. You can see like the little bolts. The texture's a little rough, but you can see the little bolts on that centerpiece in the back. You can even see the texture in the vents. It is really nicely done. I ended up having to redo an arm, and I finally settled on this position for the bolt rifle because it ended up creating the cleanest look. If I can get the good lighting. Yeah, the winged skull on the side there, very nicely done. The orientation of the limbs looks gorgeous. You can see like the little detail on the arm there. Overall, I was really impressed with this. This is probably going to be the way that I do it from now on. So, yeah, those were the most successful ones that I made of Space Marines. However, I was also working on making the pauldrons. I managed to find a blank Space Marine pauldron and then another file for the 3D printed chapter shapes. And then by simply superimposing the chapter shape onto the pauldron, I was able to create these. I think that this, with these angled ones, ended up having the tops of the wings much more detailed and much sharper. These ones were pretty simple and nicely positioned, but I don't like the way that they are less distinct when it comes to those wingtips. So I think from now on, whenever I'm making Space Marine pauldrons, I'm gonna angle them like this and probably just do them in sets of 5, because this base here was a very, very sturdy base, really stuck to the build plate nicely. But yeah. As for the actual official minis, I'll be doing an actual army showcase for those when I finish updating the army. But I just wanted to tell you all that because, oh my god, this printer has been amazing. I have loved this printer. It has done a lot of good work. I ended up buying the wash and cure station as well because it was obviously going to be needed if I wanted to make sure my minis were properly detailed. The isopropyl alcohol that I was using first, not great. Not great at all. So this mean green stuff though, whew, it cleans these minis up nicely, and I typically throw in the minis for at least 2 wash cycles. By the time it's done, the minis are nicely clean, they're ready to go, and the details are beautiful. Then I throw it on the plate for the UV curing. Throw that on for like an hour, maybe 2 if the pieces seem to need a little bit more time in the sun, so to speak. But overall, yeah, the Anycubic Photon S has been a remarkably good 3D printer, and I have loved this thing. Honestly though, that last set that I showed you guys and the current set that's currently going in the printer, I had to make those ones in the settings as each layer being only 1/10 of a millimeter. At least I think that was like 1/10 of a millimeter. So every time that I'm making these new ones, it takes like 14 hours to do. And it is a bit of a wait. A bit of a wait to be sure, but I don't mind. I'm away from my place for good portions of the day. And as we speak right now, this one I went and set it up about 10 hours ago. So we got about four and a half hours left. Yeah. Anycubic Photon S. I think it's still on sale for like 99 bucks. So if you are interested, I will highly recommend it because it is really good, especially for that nice small stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna end that video here because I feel that I've addressed what I wanted to address. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We are still working on trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Probably not this year. I get that. Next year, we can go for it. If you like the video, indicate so down below. And if you have suggestions for future videos, drop in the comments. I've been Alpha White Wolf. I'm signing off. You keep howling, Wolfpack.